Welcome to the Paid in Full podcast. I'm Devin Fadul, and in this show, I sit down with creatives of all stripes who have decided to follow their passion and carve out a unique path to success. My goal is to dive into their stories, learn about their philosophies, and share their hard-earned wisdom. Hello, everybody. Today's episode is with the one and only Sheel Mohnot, serial entrepreneur, early-stage investor, and co-founder of the fintech-focused VC firm, Better Tomorrow Ventures. Now, while his work resume is quite impressive, I do think his life resume can compete. Here is a short list of highlights. Making a cameo in a Justin Bieber video, cruising through the Panama Canal, getting married in the Taco Bell metaverse, and staying at an Airbnb with the co-founder of Airbnb. Oh, and he's got one of the best Twitter accounts out there. This was a really fun and really enlightening conversation for me, and I hope you enjoy it as well. Don't forget to check out the show notes for links to everything mentioned. And without further ado, here's my chat with Sheel Mohnot. I thought we would start kind of at the beginning, whenever your dad emigrated to the States. I wanted to key on one specific moment, and correct me if anything I say here is wrong, but at some point he was in the Deep South selling encyclopedias in the mid-70s door to door. And not only was he doing that, he crushed it. So feel free to fill in any holes that I might have missed there. But my question is, what did you learn from your dad, whether explicitly or implicitly? What lessons did he impart on you?
I think coming from not a lot, you kind of end up, he came to a whole new country, quite an adventure to do that as all immigrants, and you're in search of a better life. And then you kind of just have to do whatever it takes to make it. And, I think he really embodies that. He's always been doing a bunch of like whatever it takes. So he's always had something on the side and was always a business person. And I've really admired that and feel like it's a big part of who I am.
Do you think that you would be where you are if you had a different father, maybe less of a risk taker or?
I definitely would be different. And I think it's not just my dad, by the way. My mom has a totally different type of go-getter attitude. And actually later in life, my mom has it much more than my dad. So I think I'm definitely a product of both. But no, I think, I'm definitely a product of those parents and probably like my grandparents too. I can see qualities from definitely my mom's father passed away, but I can see how a lot of his life is kind of something that I'm kind of emulating now too.
I feel like everywhere I look now, an Indian person is in charge or they're killing it in some way, shape, or form. There's the obvious, CEOs of Google, of
Adobe, Microsoft, IBM. There's a bunch of
UK Prime Minister.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I'm certainly no expert on India, but what I've learned recently is that India is not, there's almost 3,000 different Indias. It's such a diverse country.
Yeah.
But still, these folks are not just in the US, all across the world, going to those countries and making an impact, let's just say, being very successful. So what is it? I'm still trying to figure this out. And by the way, this will be episode 16 of my podcast. I think you're number 5 or 6 of men and women with Indian heritage. So, I mean, that was just kind of a lucky accident. But I'm curious, like, what is it about Indian culture that allows for that success, especially from the diaspora out into the world?
Yeah. I think it's, first of all, like immigrants in general coming from one place to another. I think Indians, so first of all, I think a lot of generalizations people make about Indians are probably only true of the Indians that immigrated. And I think a lot of people came in search for a better life and kind of did whatever it took to make that happen and make that happen for their kids. A lot of the folks you mentioned, the most successful ones, Sundar, CEO of Google, Satya, CEO of Microsoft, and Shantanu, CEO of Adobe, and actually like Inder Nui, who was CEO of Pepsi, Ajay Banga, who was CEO of MasterCard, Arvind, who was CEO of IBM, actually all came from India. Like they were born in India. They're not like me, who like I was born in the United States. My dad is the one that had the difficult life in India and chose to come over here. And then I had a relatively easy life in the United States growing up in Pittsburgh. But I think a lot of those folks just had a like do whatever it takes attitude. And there are a lot of Indians And the folks that made it over here had to persevere. They were pretty smart, especially, those that came over in the 70s when immigration kind of opened up, mostly came over for graduate studies. My dad did his master's and PhD here. And so you had a very successful class coming over. And now, actually, a lot of those people are staying in India. But back then, this was the land of opportunity. India was still a pretty socialist country. So it was hard to make it in India. And now that's changed. But the people of that generation who are today in their 50s, 60s, 70s are just really talented.
Hmm.
By the way, the other thing you said is correct, is like India is not just like one place. The way I think about it is India is probably more like Europe than it is like a single culture like France. It's like there are, I don't remember how many now, but there were 18 official languages of India. Everywhere you go is actually like very different, operates very different. For example, in India, there are states that are still communist, and there are states that are very, very capitalist. So like it's not really one cohesive place. And I think that most people in America don't really realize that. Even in food, like the food is very different state to state. And I think in the United States, people think about, oh, like I had Indian food versus like we would think about, oh, we had like Punjabi food or South Indian food. It's different.
So I know that you on your website you listed I think it was two of your top four was North Indian and then South Indian food or vice
Yeah,
versa.
South Indian first.
What are the biggest differences?
Yeah, so South Indian food's my favorite, and the food that you probably had from South India most likely would be dosa, idli, vada.
So is that like chicken tikka masala?
No, that would be from the north.
Okay.
And the north, Punjab in particular, is where most of the North Indian food, most of the restaurants in America are actually serving Punjabi kind of Mughlai food, we call it. And a lot of stuff grows there. They have a lot of cows, so there's a lot. It's like pretty creamy. Wheat grows there a lot, so you have wheat-based stuff, naan. And in the south, you have more rice-based stuff, rice and lentil-based. So you have dosa and other stuff like that. And then it's more tropical, so you also have more coconut in the curries. So those are kind of the differences between mostly what you find in the United States. Now, where I'm from is totally different. So we're south of Punjab from a state called Rajasthan. It's a desert state. Not much good stuff grows there, to be honest. We don't have many natural resources. In the desert, you tend to be somewhat nomadic people. And I actually think it's possible that that influences business. And if you think about like Jews also come from a similar sort of desert place with where there isn't a whole lot of natural resources. And so you develop a scarcity mindset. So people where I'm from, which is Rajasthan, are people are called Marwaris, and we're known to be pretty frugal, always saving money. And I think that comes from like coming from the desert. If you live in the desert, like you need to save up whatever you have. Like you don't know when you're going to get water next. You got to save it. And then because you have no natural resources, you end up having to trade for anything. And so you end up just becoming good at trading. So my people, the Marwaris, are known for having, we come from this desert area, but then we've gone all over India, and wherever we've gone, we are the traders in that place. So Bombay, which is in a state called Maharashtra, a lot of the trading happens from people from where I'm from. We immigrated there, and that's where the big trading markets are. So that's where we end up going.
Interesting. Would it be fair to say that where you come from, is that known even within India as as the businessmen of the country?
Yeah, very, very much so. Yeah. And actually, what's interesting is you see that play out even today, where if you look at even in tech in general, these are obviously broad generalizations, but largely hold up. Folks in the South are very good at computer science, and like the best engineering talent is mostly down there. That's where Bangalore is. But many of the CEOs, even of like the software unicorns, actually come from where I'm from Rajasthan, and then a neighboring state, Gujarat, is where like the bulk of the leaders of the top Indian companies are from.
Imagine a world where your financial future isn't just a series of guesses and hopeful projections, but a meticulously crafted strategy designed by experts who get it. That's Adda, a financial advisory that's more than just suits and numbers. It's about understanding that behind every portfolio is a person, a family, a dream. Adda doesn't just play the game, we redefine it. Personalized strategies? Check. A deep dive into your financial DNA? Absolutely. A partner who celebrates your wins and strategizes your next moves? Without question. We're not just in it for the fiscal year, we're in it for the long haul. So if you're tired of the one-size-fits-all approach, the impersonal advice, and the feeling that you're just another account number, it's time for a change. It's time for Adda, where wealth meets wisdom, where plans turn into action, where your financial future isn't just secure, it's empowered. Visit addafinancial.com today, because your legacy deserves more than just guesswork.
How much investing do you do in India these days?
So first of all, like we're global in nature, but probably 70% of our companies are in the US. And then probably after the US, LATAM is kind of, if you broad regions wise, LATAM is probably next. And then after that is probably India. We have a handful of companies in India. We're not like constantly scouting India for deals, but partially because of my Indian heritage and also Nihar and our team lived in India and ran a company in India. We just tend to see a lot in India and like investing there. I think there are challenges. Some of them just we're fintech investors and the market has certain dynamics that haven't been great, even though the macro in India is great, where like you have this large and growing middle class, a ton of people. The problem is if you think about the ways you can make money in fintech, it's you can charge the customer. While India, like there's very little willingness to pay for consumers. You can make money on payments, but in India, the government has done something great for Indians, which is UPI, this like peer-to-peer payments protocol. But it's hard to make money from that. And then also interchange rates on cards are much lower than the US. And you can make money on AUM. So like the way most financial planners make money. The problem with that is just there aren't that many rich Indians. I think despite there being whatever 1.3, 1.4 billion people in India, there are only, I think, 800,000 US dollar millionaires versus in the US, we have like 25 or 30 million US dollar millionaires. So it's just a smaller pool. So that's tough. And then the final way that you can make money of the primary four ways is lending. And that is where most fintech businesses in India make money. But lending has certain characteristics that I don't love. One of which is in venture capital, you're always investing in growth. So you're betting on something that's growing fast and hoping that it continues at that pace. The problem is if you're growing by giving out money, it's pretty easy to keep giving out money. And bad underwriters grow faster than good underwriters. So that's an inherent challenge. And then the other challenge is you need to continue to raise debt capital. But generally speaking, to raise debt capital, you have to raise more equity capital. And they give you a certain percentage of the equity capital you've raised. So that ends up being challenging as well. So for those reasons, we haven't done as much in India as we would like, despite the macro conditions being awesome.
Do you see like wealth tech specifically at all?
Surprisingly, we haven't done that much in wealth tech. We would like to do more. I think some of it stems from just like what we see and where we kind of have ended up investing. It's not necessarily like we don't believe in it or anything like that. I do think selling into investment advisors can be tough because it's generally a fragmented market and hard to sell into individuals that way. They haven't been the quickest to adopt technology. And then there's the overall like feeling that a lot of this stuff started a long time ago. So if you look at for retail investing, Robinhood and others started kind of before we got started. Wealthfront and Betterment are super old businesses now, 15 plus years old each. And we haven't seen a lot of great innovation in the years since then. There are some businesses out there, Titan and Public being ones that we looked at, but just didn't quite get comfortable with. And we actually, there is a company we did invest in that actually you may be familiar with called Ethic. Do you know Ethic?
Not familiar, not off the top of my head now.
Okay. It's a platform. They lead with sustainable and values aligned investing. So the original goal was align your values with your portfolio. And really, like, that's what they lead with. But the business also does a lot more and helps you do tax loss harvesting, build direct indexing models and stuff like that. And it's gone well. I think the last announced AUM was north of 5 billion. So it's a big and growing company. And they sell in through folks like you.
To me, I have this feeling that wealth management, financial advising, at the end of the day, is a service business. Service businesses are hard to scale.
Totally.
That's where AI can come into play. And I think I'm aligned with a lot of folks on the cutting edge here. And the idea that I'm not sure that human to human interaction is ever going to be out of style. The idea is to utilize AI to get rid of as much of the lower value, the non-value add tasks.
Agreed.
And that's how I've been building my business from the start, is leveraging software as much as I possibly can to then free up my time to spend actually talking to my clients, right? And I feel like a lot of the wealth tech products that are out there are trying to eliminate the advisor itself. When I don't think that that's ever going to happen. Maybe in some future where, from the movie Her, and that's possible. But for now, people want that human to human interaction. Any thoughts on that, and like utilizing software, algorithms, technology to scale this business such that one advisor can serve more than just that classic 50 to 150?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I don't think advisors are going away anytime soon. If you look at the new stuff from OpenAI, it is compelling, and you could see a world in that not too distant future that is that Her like experience. That maybe that does happen, and maybe people are building custom LLMs for this purpose, and I could see that. I think most people probably still will want a human, and we've seen this evolution already. And 15 years ago, people thought, when Wealthfront and Betterment came out, a lot of people said, okay, like that's the future. Everybody's gonna do that. But really, like what they do is not what you do. It's actually like a different thing. And for the most part, those businesses, while they have grown, they've mostly taken out self-directed. And I don't think they're really competing with you that much. But I do think there's a tremendous opportunity in helping you do your business better. Now, there are folks that probably are not worth your while. Just they're not at a place where they can support a real human. And I think supporting those kind of folks with AI is pretty cool. And I think we will see that. We have a portfolio company called albert.com, and they work with primarily folks in the 5-figure income bracket. And they have some of the stuff you're talking about, where you can interact with a human agent, but that human agent is actually augmented by AI and has all of your background and knows all about you. The AI can start to suggest things, but the human is ultimately answering every question, but augmented with AI.
Mm-hmm. This idea that you're going to call your advisor to say, hey, how much can I put into my 401k this year? Or what is my gift tax exclusion? Like all of that is going to be answered by an AI, I would say in the near future. All of that rote memorization stuff.
Totally.
Whereas that frees up all of that headspace and emotional energy for the advisor to say, how was your week? Tell me about the argument you had with your husband about your recent trip to Target. Well, why are you worried about your kids and their 529 plans? And just being that true advisor, that right-hand person for these folks, because the old ways of selling insurance, selling investment products, and even talking to somebody once a year and charging 1% of AUM, that's gone in 10 years, 15 years at the most. So what does the next phase of this industry look like? And that's what I'm constantly trying to think about. And ultimately, what my question is have you invested in any companies? Have you thought of that? I would imagine there's a ton of headwinds and reasons not to, but
we actually just haven't looked at that many companies in that space, but I would say looking for more. So if you're out there listening to this podcast, we'd love to talk to you.
So we're both from Pittsburgh, Sheel. Pittsburgh has been growing. I can't say that it's been booming. I'm sure you've kept an eye on it, but it's a fun town these days. That being said, Pittsburgh's doing something wrong in the sense of like most people that I talk to, if they haven't been to Pittsburgh, they have this idea that it's this smoky, dirty, they have this vision of Pittsburgh in the 1870s or something like that when it's not that at all.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh should just engage in this national marketing campaign of saying, hey, here's what Pittsburgh can offer, because everybody that comes here and has no idea what it's about, they love it. Okay, that's a long-winded way of asking my question of, if you were mayor for a day or for a year, Like, what are some of the things that you would change in order to specifically beef up or improve Pittsburgh's startup culture?
I think you're right that everybody who comes to Pittsburgh is impressed, because the reputation doesn't reflect the reality. But I actually think like these things take a really long time to change, and it's getting there. I think people are talking about Pittsburgh. I think, look, it's just a smaller city, so the it's never gonna have as many people as these other top cities for tech. But I think it holds its own. And the recent companies there, Duolingo and Aurora, both went public, and then the guys from Argo started the new company Stack AV, and that's a $1 billion plus company. So I think you have a lot of good stuff happening in Pittsburgh. I'm not sure a marketing campaign is what it needs. I think like what's something kind of funny is there's a bunch of ads around San Francisco for like Ohio and New Jersey, and people kind of just laugh at them. One of the coolest things I saw was an ad by Duolingo. They put up a billboard here on the 101, and it says, I think the billboard just said, "Own a home, move to Pittsburgh."
Yeah.
And they had a bunch of those billboards. So I thought that was cool. So I'm not sure that Pittsburgh needs to do the marketing. I think other people need to do it for them.
Mhm. Here's a side little thing that I was thinking about as I was putting this together. You think you've got Paul Graham, Bill Campbell, and Mark Cuban kind of on the Mount Rushmore of Pittsburgh-born VCs, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you keep up what you're doing, maybe in another few years, you're gonna be carved
I don't
into
know
Mount
about that.
Washington one day. Okay, let's make a left turn. This is so fascinating to me. So if you had a tagline, and I might have missed this, but if I were to assign you a tagline, it would be something like "Life is an adventure." You've done some
Yeah.
awesome stuff, man. And I don't know if whimsical is the best word to describe it because it's more substantial. But you got married in the Taco Bell metaverse, right? Which
Yeah.
is so cool in and of itself.
That's correct. Yeah.
But one of the things I haven't heard much about is you did like a wedding tour.
Yeah.
So it's like wedding receptions are like maybe like 10 cities, and it finished up in Pittsburgh. So tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So that it was not our goal from the beginning. And then when it started happening, people were like, "Are you sure you want to do this? It's going to be terrible." But we actually loved it. And so what happened was we got engaged in Mexico and thought it'd be a fun place to have a wedding. I had this dream of having a wedding where kind of like all of our friends are there in one place, and you kind of have like a 4-day party. And that's what we ended up having in Mexico. We set that up kind of like early on and said, "We're going to do this." Told our parents, and they said, "Hey, you know what? Like some of our family won't be able to attend. And then like our friends actually don't want to go to Mexico. So maybe we should do our own thing." And so first, my wife Amrita's mom did that. And she said, "We're going to do something in Cleveland, where she's from." And we said, "Sure, we can do some sort of event in Cleveland." And I didn't know how big of an event it was going to be, to be honest. Like I thought it was going to be something kind of small. It ended up being a really big thing where she rented out the botanical garden. It was like a full day event, and actually had an event the day before. So it was like a multi-day thing. So we did Cleveland, and then a lot of my family in India just cannot get a visa to the United States or Mexico. So we felt like we should do something in India. So we did something in India, which was in Bombay, beginning of the year. Then along the way, we heard about this Taco Bell thing, which was Taco Bell said, "We want to marry one couple in this Taco Bell metaverse." And we thought, okay, that sounds fun. I'm a big fan of Taco Bell. And actually, a bunch of people messaged me on Twitter saying, "Hey, this is perfect for you. You just got engaged and you love Taco Bell." And I think probably nobody took it very seriously, thinking that I would actually do it. But I talked about it with my wife, and she was on board. And so we did it. We applied for this thing. We made a 2-minute video, I think we had to submit, and they chose us. And so we decided to plan this wedding in this Taco Bell metaverse. And that sounds crazy to probably everyone listening, but it was actually really fun. It was a way for everyone from around the world to participate in this like random like 3D animated thing, but it was actually really beautiful and fun. And it was short. It was like 45 minutes. And then we actually had a reception at a Taco Bell here in the Bay Area that's beautiful. It's actually on the beach, like stunning location. And that was really fun. So that was another one. And then uh, Cleveland, I mentioned Cleveland. That actually wasn't enough for my family. Like, even though Cleveland's only a couple hours away, everybody wasn't able to attend Cleveland. So we had to do Pittsburgh. And then I've been going to Burning Man for many years, and I thought it would be fun to do a wedding there. So we did a wedding there. And then it just kind of like built upon itself. And then at some point it was like, okay, we have all these weddings. Maybe that's just our thing now. And we did a bunch more. It was really fun. And, gave our friends an excuse to attend all of them because they you have to go to your friend's wedding. So it was awesome. It was really, really fun time. And we were able to bring so many of our friends together so many times last year. It was great.
Did you meet your wife on the Zoom Bachelor, or was that after?
Sort of concurrent. So the Zoom Bachelor, it was this dating show during the pandemic that was just like on Twitch. And it was kind of like what the name suggests. It was pandemic time. So it was like all online, and they had a bunch of challenges and stuff like that. And my wife and I were actually set up by a friend. And the way that she knew I was single is actually the Zoom Bachelor. And actually, first it was a Zoom Bachelorette, where I was a contestant on this show. And that's when the person who set us up saw that I was single. And then she reached out to Amrita. Amrita I think initially said no. And then as the pandemic progressed a little bit, it got lonelier and lonelier. And then she finally said yes. And then actually, like after that, I was the Zoom Bachelor. So we had already been talking while I was on the Zoom Bachelor.
That's amazing. So again, you just seem like you're so full of life and you have all this energy, but you don't drink coffee or any caffeine. So how the hell? And this is coming from somebody who is similar to you, I think. Coffee just doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
If anything, it's a placebo. Like, I just don't feel any boost of energy if I drink in the morning.
Yeah.
So I'm like curious, from somebody who doesn't feel the effects of caffeine, at least the good effects. What do you do for pick-me-ups in the morning? Is it working out? Is it music? Do you have any sort of habits or strategies?
No, but yeah, I don't do caffeine. But somehow, as soon as I wake up, I am up and ready to get after it. So it's not a problem for me to like get up and immediately start working or immediately get on the phone and be on a work call or anything like that. And actually, it's like to the chagrin of my wife. She's like, wait, you just like immediately sit up and are working. And so I don't really do anything, open the blinds in our room and there's a ton of sun coming in. And that's kind of all I do.
I mentioned my career, the first decade and a half, let's call it, was fairly unfulfilling. Now I'm doing my own thing, and I'm not saying I jump out of bed every morning to get to work, but I really enjoy my days. It's very fulfilling, it's very impactful, and I've kind of reached that point where I'm finally living the life that I don't necessarily want to retire from, and this is a goal that I try to steer most of my clients toward, that as opposed to the traditional model.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm just going to kind of like, hold my nose for the next 30 years, make as much money as possible, and then finally live when I turn 65. I think that is one definition of insanity.
Completely agree.
Again, you were living kind of this dream lifestyle already. So my question is, do you think you'll ever capital R retire? Like, what does the next 30 years of your career look like? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, it's a tough question, but I think it's a good one. And I think my answer is probably not. I think people that retire, like everything atrophies unless you keep it going. And I'd like to keep going. I'm just like a curious person, and the work I do right now, I get to learn so much all the time, and I love that. And I can't imagine wanting to stop it. So I don't think I'll retire anytime soon, but I think I'll probably always do something. And if it's not venture capital, maybe it'll be starting some other business. I have no idea, but I think I'll always be doing something.
Yeah, are you familiar with Kahee at all?
No.
The Rad Reads guy. He thinks and talks about money and retirement a lot now. Anyways, he had this kind of framework of bust your ass in your career for the first 15 years, then take a break from 35 to 50, take a step back, not a break. And then, in your 60s and 70s, kind of re-up again. So you stay, at the very least, intellectually engaged. Because, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be just golfing and swimming. all day when I'm 70. That doesn't sound like all that great
Totally.
of a
It doesn't
life.
appeal to me at all. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. It doesn't appeal to me, at least right now. And I highly doubt it ever will. The one thing I do, I enjoy in terms of a hobby that I can see myself doing a bunch is travel. I travel quite a bit now, and I could see myself like, I don't know, maybe doing more of that, but I find that I can do that just fine while working now, and I hope that that continues.
Yeah, travel's huge for me as well. What's your top three places on your travel list right now?
Yeah, I've been to a lot of places. I think the three places that I haven't been to that I'm dying to go to, one is New Zealand. It's like kind of shocking I haven't been there. So I've never spent time in New Zealand. Um, I've never been to Brazil, which hopefully I will change this year. And I've never been to Ecuador, and I'll include the Galapagos. I'd like to go to the Galapagos Islands.
You're invested in at least one company in Brazil, right?
We are invested in a few companies in Brazil. My partner Jake goes to Brazil fairly frequently, but I haven't made it down with him. It's just like timing hasn't worked out for me to be there when he's there.
Yeah, I mean, I have to live vicariously through you, man, because I've got three kids, two of which are under the age of two. So traveling
Oh,
is
that's tough. That's tough to travel in. Yeah.
Are you guys thinking about having kids?
Yeah, I think we'd like to. And, we are old enough where it's not easy. So we're working through some of that stuff now. But hopefully in the next year or so.
Well, I'm pretty sure you've probably heard this a million times, but I think you'd be an incredible dad.
Oh, thank you.
Part of the secret joy of being a father is that you get to be like super goofy again.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
that's great. Love that.
it's one of the joys of being a dad. So I wish you guys the best.
Thank you.
All right. I think I've covered some of the bigger stuff. If you don't mind, I want to do a quick kind of like rapid fire session.
Let's do it.
Okay. First question. These are going to be kind of goofy, off the wall. All right. You get to spend a weekend with one of these individuals. Who is it? Larry David, Nathan Fielder, or Ali G?
Wow, that's a great question because I love all of those guys.
Me too.
When you said Larry David, I was like, oh, it's going to be Larry David, and then you said Nathan Fielder. I was like, oh man, that's tough. And then LEG, love all of them. That's exactly the comedy I like. I think I'm leaning Ali G though.
Wow.
I think he'd be the most fun and most out there. I think Larry David would be hilarious in his own way, but I think to spend a weekend with, I think Ali G might be more fun.
Great answer. I was not expecting that. My response to that would be Booyakasha.
Exactly. Yeah.
Side question. What do you think of the latest season of Curb?
Liked it. Have to say I'm sad it's over. But yeah, it was good. There was definitely some highlights. I think I like the last season better though. What about you?
I'm a kind of a diehard Curb fan. I've seen, the first 5 or 6 seasons I basically have memorized. I'm not sure if I'm proud of that, but I love the first 5 or 6. And then there was kind of a dip there, like season 7, 8, 9, something like that, like weren't as good. And then the last 2 definitely picked it up. Okay, here's another question. So you tweet a lot. How come you don't write more? Blogs, books, whatever. And this is in the context of,
yeah,
call me crazy, but writing, and this is something that I generally believe in, but writing is kind of going through this renaissance right now.
Yeah.
And especially if you're a VC, it's kind of de rigueur to publish a book.
Yeah.
Just curious. I mean, you've probably got a lot to say. You're probably great at it. So what's the deal?
I think, a lot of my tweets are relatively sort of fast work and get a lot of viewership as compared to the amount of work it takes to write. And I mean, the real answer is like, I would like to do more writing, but I just haven't had the chance and time to do so. And then I also feel like, I don't know if I can fill the pages. I used to write more. I had a blog, I guess it was almost 20 years ago, and I lived in India, 2006, 7. I would write regularly in more long form. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll get back into it. My partner Jake does more long form writing, and I dash off silly things on the internet, on Twitter. Yeah, I don't know. Hope to get back to it.
Well, whatever you're doing on Twitter is working. It's highly entertaining, man. I love it.
Thank you.
Keep it up. Yeah. So you mentioned India, and this is again another side question, but you mentioned India. You were there. You lived there for about a year, and you lived on essentially $1 a day. And this was when you were what, early 20s, right? 23, something like that.
That's right. Yeah.
My question though is, your parents both immigrated. they came from, at the very best, middle class background. So like,
Yeah.
what did they think? Like, what is my idiot son doing,
Yeah.
running, living essentially in poverty? Did they push back?
100%. They were like, what the hell are you doing, basically? Their feedback was, look, there are like a billion people over there trying to get over here. Like, what are you doing
Hmm.
going over there? And we brought you over here to build a better life. They did have that pushback, but I think ultimately we're supportive of what I wanted to do. And, it taught me a lot, and has been very impactful to my life. So I think in the end, it was the right decision, but definitely not without debate with my parents who weren't the happiest about it initially.
Yeah, I think that is a phenomenal idea. I think it's even mentioned in Kevin Kelly's most recent book. And my oldest is 14, and I would love for her to do something like that. Maybe not quite $1 a day, but do a gap year, travel the world,
Yeah.
feel what it's like to live, live not in a suburban white bubble for the most part,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
learn some things on your own when you're 18, 19, whatever it is.
That's awesome.
All right, man. Last question. I'm a big board game guy. We're a big board game family, always looking for new games. But the problem is a lot of these games that are, the award-winning ones, they're incredibly difficult to learn.
It's the worst.
I call it like the easy to learn, the hard to master games.
Yeah.
This is just off the top of my head. Ticket to Ride, Azul. I would even say like Catan, maybe one or two that I'm forgetting. But like, do you have any suggestions on great, easy to learn, hard to master style games?
Yeah. Acquire. You played Acquire?
No, but I've heard of it.
It's good. It's actually from the 60s.
Business building, right?
Yeah, it's actually, yeah, hotel building, but very different than Monopoly. 3M, the company that makes like post-it notes, they actually used to have a board game division,
Hmm.
and they actually created this game. And you just basically have to develop and merge hotel chains. And it's really fun and fairly easy to learn. But once you've been playing for a while, you realize there are some tricks. So it takes a while to master.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna throw that in my Amazon cart later today. All right, man. Well, this is fantastic. I really, really appreciate your time. Wish you the best. If you're ever in town, look me up.
Sounds good, man. Thanks. This was fun.
Take care. Bye.